Hi, Nicole from Moms Apart here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the worksheets inside the hospital binder pack today. So the first worksheet I'm going to go over is the mom's worksheet. I'm going to go over this one first because in my day-to-day flow, I would actually do this one in the evening before I go to bed, just because I'm not alert and like mentally in a capacity to think in the mornings, especially if I haven't got my coffee, and usually the doctors are waking me up for rounds, so there's no coffee involved. So for the mom's worksheet, there's spots to talk about your self-care goals, your documenting goals, to connect, and memories in the making. So these different spots I felt like were to help you be a little bit more intentional about just taking care of yourself. Because during a hospital stay, that's going to be the number one thing that makes you lose your ever-loving mind. So let's talk about self-care goals. It's really easy to forget to eat, to shower, to go for a walk, to just take a breather. And so the night before, you can kind of think through like what needs to happen. Are you stinking up the room? Write those things down if you don't have a chance to take a shower then, or you're just ready to pass out. Just kind of say like, okay, tomorrow the goal is shower. And then you can kind of integrate it into the others as you go. Documenting goals. So for me, especially when we were in the ICU, I really enjoyed getting pictures of the equipment each day so that I'm making a photo book now for my son's first birthday coming up, so that I could have this photo book of like as his the medical equipment changed from day to day. But it was really hard for me to remember because I was there all day. At some point, I need to take that picture. So by putting it on the goal sheet, it helps remember to do that, and also to journal. I kept trying to do that at weird times and then I'd forget. So just by putting it on like a little checklist of like things I want to make sure I do today, kind of helped. And then connect. So this might just be posting, like just a reminder to post an update to your Facebook group. I know when things are bad, it's really easy to remember that. But when things are good, like they're like, so what's going on? So it's just that reminder to you, like, you don't have to sit on Facebook all day, but let your group know, like, you guys are doing okay today, and maybe just an update on the goals or whatever. And then like a reminder to connect just for yourself, that you need that connection to real people. So if that's your best friend, your sister, your mom, whoever is kind of your person, just that reminder that it's important to call them too, and connect with people outside the hospital, outside your world in the day-to-day, because it helps you feel a little bit more human and not just stuck in the hospital world. And then memories in the making is just kind of to remind you to look for the really sweet moments, and to be able to document those, because especially for that first, if your baby was born in the hospital and you guys have to go straight to the ICU, that was our story. A lot of those firsts that if they were at home would be captured with a million pictures and posted all over Instagram and Facebook because you're those proud new parents. In the hospital, it just feels different. And that first little fart smile that happens, you might not be urgent to take a picture because they just had open heart surgery and the chest doesn't look really pretty and they still have oxygen on, and so it doesn't feel like a pretty picture, and so you might not be like urgent to capture it, or it just doesn't feel like it's an exciting memory like it might. And so to just remind yourself, like, it is still like your baby smiled and that's exciting and cute. So just a reminder to stop and find the joy, find the things to be thankful for today, and write down those things that you're going to want to remember later. The input-output trackers, sorry, this glare is terrible. But it's basically just a big grid sheet. So our hospital gave us one of these, but it really wasn't as functional as I needed it to be. And so I edited it and it was a mess, and we made it work, but I feel like this is a little bit more functional and hopefully you'll find some benefit from it. So it's got the times for the day, and then you can kind of write out like at that time what happened. So usually if your child's in diapers, then you're weighing the diapers, and that's what you would document is the urine. And then if they had a bowel movement or not, because they track all those things at the hospital. And then, if your child's potty trained, then you're, going in the urinal, and that's still measured. So there's an opportunity to track that. And the reason I would track this myself, in addition to what they're doing, and they usually would just take my sheet and go put it in the computer and then bring my sheet back. The reason I would have it separate is because sometimes diapers get missed. And we had one day where we were trying to get off of all the diuretics, and my son had like one just like sopping wet, like, so it was like a post-snap diaper or something. It was so heavy. And the nurse missed entering it. And so it was like 200 or something short for his output. And so they wanted to put him on more Lasix rather than take him off some. And it was my personal record of his diapers that kind of helped save, no, we don't need more Lasix. We need to come off of it. And so that's why I kind of recommend keeping your own record. In the ICU, that may not be as much of an issue because they're so super careful about tracking everything. But once you get to step down, things kind of start to be more your own realm. And that was where we had our issue. So in the ICU, you may not need this quite as much, but in step down, you might find this page to be helpful. And then tracking PO and then feeding tubes, because I know a lot of babies are dealing with feeding tubes. If it doesn't apply to you, that's okay. But tracking that intake, there was no way to divide like what was PO and what was given in the tube on the sheet at the hospital. So I split that up because it's important so you can track how much your baby's actually eating and how much you're having to help still. And then other for oral care or seizure monitoring or whatever else you guys are tracking, there's an other column that you can just kind of jot down that things were done at a specific time so that you can help communicate with your care team like how much care you're providing and all those things. Because as you get further along in your journey, you just want to do the care yourself. So that kind of helps keep that all in track. And then there's a spot for the bath. So if you're doing your own bath and they're not really involved in that, you can just say, yeah, we did a bath today, because they get obsessive about it. A spot for you to write down height and weight. So when they do that, you can keep track of the growth curve and stuff if that's something that you're interested in. If you're not, it's okay. Oral care, wound care, just to kind of those things that need to be done every day are tracked. Spots to write those down are also on that page. And then this worksheet here, I think I'll just have this up on the screen, to help with communication for a nursing shift change. So this is another one that I feel like was really beneficial, something that kind of worked itself out eventually through our 5 hospital stays in the last year, but something that I wish I had from the beginning. So it starts off with your nurses' names, and then a lot of times in the hospitals now they have like a phone with just an extension that you can just dial from your hospital room to get straight to your nurse, and that's way easier than using your call light, especially for things that need to go directly to your nurse. So that's a helpful, like, just to, if you're going to ask for ibuprofen or something, for them to be able to just bring it to you rather than like make 2 trips of like, hey, what do you need? And then go back and get it. Just save your nurse some time. So grab that extension number. So there's a spot for you to write that down for the day. And then concerns from the last shift. So it's a chance for you to say like, hey, night shift didn't let us sleep at all. We're exhausted. Can you let us try and get a nap today? Or that, like when we're talking about like, if you're going to put this sign up for the day, please see the nurse before entering, then that's your chance to kind of explain why you're needing that little bit of a break. And then they can kind of act as the guard to your door a little bit, and kind of filter out who can come in and who can't. So that's a good spot to, if there's something that you need to chat with them about, make sure to put that there. Goals for the day. So if you already have a goal for the day that you kind of know like where you're tracking before you've seen the doctors, or maybe it's night shift and like kind of where you're headed, or even it's just your own personal goal, chat with that about your nurse so that you can all be on the same page and moving towards the same direction. So maybe your goal is to be doing all the care yourself. Communicate that and they'll help you with that. So simplify care, again, just that, like same cue as with the doctors, but you're going to come in at it from the nursing perspective. So to say, hey, when you come in and do meds, can you also do, help me with the bath and to do the dressing change and do all of it at once. And then that way we can let the baby get a nap. And just like communicate, you want it all done at once. And sometimes nurses, especially older, like nurses who've been in practice for a while, will think to do all those things ahead. But sometimes newer nurses or nurses who just are a little bit more scatterbrained don't think of it. And so if when they come in to say, hey, I'm your nurse for the day, what do you need? Just like kind of let's get on the same page. Just say, okay, I know these are the things you need to do for the day. Can we just do them all at once? So that we just have one little thing that it's all done, and then we can kind of go on with our day. And if we need you, we'll let you know. It kind of helps have a quieter day, which helps everybody. And also for vital signs, I got to the point where I kind of preferred to do my own vital signs, because then I could do them when my kid was awake or in a position where like I knew I could get his blood pressure and it wasn't going to be crazy because he's screaming, because they always made him scream. So it just kind of gives you an opportunity to communicate all of those things as well. And then self-care planning. So that goes back to that first worksheet that I would fill out the night before of like, I need a shower, I need to walk, I need to go get something to eat. Plan with them when they have, if your baby really just needs someone in the room or someone listening, and you're not in a position where you can really step away or you can't have someone come sit, to be able to say, I need a break. Is there a time during your day that someone could come kind of keep an eye on the baby while I do like the self-care? And usually if you ask up front like that, they're really willing to help you, or the PCA, or they'll find somebody. If someone really needs to be right there with the baby. Otherwise, they'll just work out, we'll leave the monitors on and the door open in case they cry. And but I would still do it at a slower time so that someone can respond if your baby's crying. So kind of coordinate that. And then the daily worksheet. This is to help track your vital signs. If you don't care about that, that's okay. You don't have to track it. For me, I'm a nurse, so I knew some of the significance of those things, and I kind of had, even if the doctor didn't specifically say, like, we want to get the heart rate to this, or we want to get the blood pressure to this, kind of knew our goals and what we wanted to work towards, and so it was helping me see the trending as well, since I didn't have access to computers. And then the equipment in place, this was just kind of my own personal thing, because I knew the less equipment we had, the closer we were to getting home. And so by making that list, it kind of goes back to the photos before, but making that list and then seeing, one thing removed, we're that much closer to home. So that's something I like to track. And then the equipment changes. So whether we're adding something or taking away something that day, so you can kind of mark which day there were changes. And that's something that maybe it's good for documentation later if you're trying to retell the story, but it's also good for later on when you're trying to okay, something changed this day, what is it? And you can kind of flip back through these notes, and maybe there will be a clue there in some kind of equipment. We went off dialysis that day, and that's why, this changed or whatever. So that might just be helpful too if you guys are trying to figure out something. And then milestones. Again, it's kind of a repeat from the memories in the making, but maybe just a little bit more medically focused. And then for the doctor's worksheet, you probably already got the freebie and saw that worksheet, so I'm not going to repeat it again. And then this worksheet here, the medications and labs. This one is, it might be over your head, and that's okay. As a nurse, for me, it was really important to track. And then especially as we got to the point where we were getting ready to room in and I needed to be more responsible for some of these things, it was also really helpful. So I would write, what medications I was taking and what time and what dose. And then also, if we did PRNs, I would write those down so then I knew what time to, I could ask for the next one. And then also, if there was a new one and I couldn't remember, it wasn't I knew right off the top of my head why we were taking it. It's ibuprofen, you might not need to write down why your child's taking ibuprofen, but maybe you're not familiar with enalapril and they've added enalapril. So then I might write in parentheses next to it that it's for blood pressure. So then the next time we're talking about that medication, I can just quick reference the sheet and remember why we're taking that one. And then that also kind of helps you in that simplifying care. Sometimes they're not quick to take medications off. And so, if you're planning to talk to the doctors about simplifying care, you can kind of look over the med sheet for the day and see, okay, there's 4 medications for blood pressure. Is that really necessary? And could we condense it and increase the dose of one and get off some of the others so that we don't have as many interactions and that kind of a thing? So it gives you an opportunity to kind of think through some of those things. And then for labs, it's a lot of questions, but your nurse probably would be the more helpful person here. But like if there is a specific, I maybe wouldn't write down all the labs because they take a lot of them. But if there's a specific lab that they're concerned about. So for my son, the potassium was often the lab that we were stressing about. That's what I used as the example. So you can write the expected value. So you can ask them like, well, what's the normal range? What are we hoping for it to be? And what was it today? And then if you're what does this indicate, just so that you can keep track of why is this lab important? And then when we're checking it again. So just to kind of help with the potassium, because that's a common issue. One of the blood pressure medications causes increased potassium, but the diuretics cause decreased potassium. So they need to know either way that you have a really accurate level, because it could mean that one medication or the other needs to be adjusted. Well, as I mentioned before with the blood draws hemolyzing, that means that they clotted off in the tube, so they couldn't test it accurately. That usually makes the potassium come out in really weird numbers, usually like crazy high, which can cause heart attacks and all sorts of things. So sometimes if that happens, they'll come do a quick 12 lead EKG on your child just to make sure nothing crazy is happening. And then they'll go, okay, yeah, it probably hemolyzed, so we need to draw it again to get an accurate picture of what that lab is. So that was a situation for us, and that happened a lot of times. And we ended up finding out that if they drew it as a blood gas, they got it accurately pretty much every time. But it was a headache and a half. And so through all of my frustrations and communication with the staff over so many different things, I've put together this pack, and I hope that it's really helpful for you and it helps you to communicate with your care team and really step up as an advocate and be a helpful member of the care team for your child. If there's something more that you think would be helpful to add to this pack, or there's a page that is maybe not designed quite in a way that would be really functional, I'd love your feedback. I definitely plan to do some redesigns of this in the future. This is just the 1.0 version. So if you have some feedback, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at nicole@momsofheart.com, or you can find me on any of the social medias at Moms of Heart. I'd love your feedback, and because you've purchased today, any revisions you'll get for free. I'll make sure to get those out to you, or access to them somehow. So anyways, thank you so much again for purchasing the hospital binder pack, and I hope you enjoy it.